That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind.
Hello, and welcome to the Mark and Pete Show. This week we debate humans back on the moon by 2024.
Yeah.
Well, Donald Trump wants humans back on the moon by 2024, and that's part of a new spacefaring age that he envisages. Is it realistic? Well, if it is 2024, he needs to get moving, because that's just 25 minutes nearly past 8 o'clock. I don't think he's going to make it. But in actual fact, yes, I do remember, and so too does Clergyman Pete, folks. Yes, listeners, we were actually glued to our televisions in July 1969 watching Neil Armstrong land on the moon and utter that infamous phrase. Well, yes, but what was more important is it seemed to dominate all of our lives, and is still making impact today. I remember at school thinking, I want to go to the moon, I want to be out in space, and I certainly know that Clergyman Pete felt the same. In fact, it dominated my life so much that I could not get enough appetite for space travel. Yes, it was almost like weightlessness. I gladly experienced another galaxy, and then swept through the Milky Way. Then I finally landed on Mars. But that's enough chocolate for today. Yes, that's right. Isn't it incredible how even our sweeties at the time at school, everything was named after space travel.
Yes.
Well, Pete, I must admit that it's a great celebration. 50 years to the day, nearly. So we celebrate Neil Armstrong and Apollo 11. What's your experience about the event itself? But more importantly, how realistic is it for us to go back to the moon?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that it's 50 years ago, because technology has changed so much, particularly computing power, which will be so important for calculating trajectory and being able to recalculate.
It's got more power now, hasn't it?
Well, the thing is that these days, the computing power that they use there, take up whole rooms of computers, you could probably do on your iPhone. Oh, sorry, and of course other phones manufacturers are available. But the thing that I'm thinking is, it should be possible today. The technology has advanced so much, not just in terms of computing power, but in terms of materials. We could make the structure of the rocket to a far greater standard these days. It should be more easily possible. I feel that the culture has changed in that the discipline of people, it seemed to me, back in the 60s, was greater than they are today. Are people going to have greater technological achievements behind them and better standards of materials, but actually mess it up because they were not as disciplined? So can we get back? Well, I certainly see that it's possible, certainly more possible today than it was that first time many years ago. In fact, it's almost impossible for young people today to appreciate it when you mention to them what people in those days could do that. No, it just doesn't seem real, to the extent that some people follow very strange conspiracy theories that they never actually went to the moon. But I think it's not only do I think it's possible, I do think it's time. It's time to get. It's not a real adventure in exploring unless you actually have some humans there.
Well,
I mean, robots are all very well, but I think you need to send a human to say you've actually explored it.
Yes. Well, maybe some people feel that Donald Trump should be sent there.
Yes, but that's just to leave him there, right?
Well, I want to talk about, in traditional Mark and Pete fashion, we're going to talk about the business of religion and the religion of business, and in terms of what's moral and what's actually commercially viable. So let's take the moral standpoint, because many people believed at the time that a lot of resources were poured into space travel, as indeed it still is. But many people feel that today we should be putting our efforts elsewhere. And what's your feeling in terms of what NASA are doing, what America is doing, and in fact the whole of Europe, and in fact even India and many other nations are now exploring space travel, including, of course, obviously Russia.
Yes. Now, here is where I have a very, very distinct view on this. I think that this is a moral thing to do this great exploration. Because I don't believe that you have sort of a set amount of money like say in a game of Monopoly, and so you can just split them up. Now, when you do these great daring things, new wealth is created by the new information that is obtained. New things are invented in the course of doing it, but also the incalculable effect on morale of achieving great things boosts people, which we found in our lives. So certainly I love the idea of space travel, and I've always really enjoyed the type of science fiction where you actually take science and just make it one little step further so you can imagine it happening. Often called hardware science fiction, where the concentration is on how the spaceships run rather than on the character development. I've always been interested in that. But these things, much in the line of Star Trek inspiring people, and following on, other space travel sagas, develop from this real thing happening or about to happen at some point. And now it's happened. It means all these things are possible. So I think for all those reasons, it's a moral and good thing to do. I don't think people are missing out because of money put into that. Rather the opposite. In the long view, doing these great things gives greater purpose to people's lives. And when we look at, say, other things people do, like climbing up mountains because they're there, it seems like a pointless thing to do, but to try and achieve great things is something that I think that God approves of. When he talks about human beings being the stewards of creation, it means they should explore the limits of creation and spread out across the universe so that they can steward all of it. So I think in all ways it's a moral thing to do, as long as you can afford it. A big country like the United States obviously can.
Well, indeed, and in fact, there's just keeping on the moral story. There was perhaps something that's not widely known, and that's about Neil Armstrong himself.
Yes.
Now, clearly, a first man on the moon, great, and his name will be there for time immemorial. But a lot of people aren't always aware that actually he became a recluse. And his reclusive behavior was really driven by, many people thought, that effectively his experience of the lunar mission had left him somewhat traumatized. He very rarely gave media interviews and perhaps became a little bit withdrawn. Now, when, as you say, that many people go to new lengths where no man has gone before in any field, it often really is an anticlimax in any particular profession. Neil Armstrong was certainly one of those who, it was documented, had some challenges with that. So the other side to it is not just about how it affects those individuals themselves, but some people think it's a bit trivial. We've known, without naming some of the brands, some very well-known brands, who've invested money with the idea of almost sort of making it like a travel bureau, that now people are starting to explore the idea that, you spend millions of pounds and you could be the first to land on the moon as a tourist. Now, that might seem like a far-fetched idea, but there are well-known brands that are actually actively working on that. Is that moral, knowing that some of that money could make a massive difference to some underdeveloped
Well, as I say,
worlds?
I don't see it in that way. I think if you're talking about in terms of your regular budget, yes, so there's a certain amount of money that you're allocating. I understand that. But overall, is it moral to do it at all because money's been spent on it? I think that it is. And you need a country with a huge budget overall to allocate them. I recognise that, but I don't think you need to limit yourself to just simply things that are going to help now. You've got to do things, I think, that give purpose and meaning in life, and allow humans to be curious and inquisitive, and to look into all aspects of God's creation. So I think that's the religious side of it. It is moral, obviously not if you're taking money directly from another part of the budget. But I don't think you need to do that. You can be more creative in the way that you organise your budget, so that you include giving to people in need, and and also investing in space travel, as you say. But surely the handing it back to you, Mark, for looking at the actual business of it.
Well,
it's the future that holds real business opportunities, as you were alluding to with the tourism.
Well, I think this is really where it actually pays off, because ironically, there are a number of well-known domestic and industrial products that have come from space exploration. I mean, the microwave, for example, has come from military and NASA.
So inventions based on it.
Inventions. So when we look around our society, from materials, products, research, engineering, and all those sort of physics that typically goes into this type of venture, somewhere down the line, a lot of the either experimental work comes into the public arena. We clearly know that obviously satellite navigation is something that, again, is a space exploration, but hey, we typically tend to sort of assume it today as being everyday consumer life. And we do rely on it for entertainment as well as just getting about the planet that we live on. But there's also something else as well, which is that it's about pushing the boundaries technologically, the innovation that it brings. And I think this is the next step. If Donald Trump wants to invest for the United States or possibly other collaborations to get to the moon again by 2024, that is an ambitious target because it's not that far away. But what it will do is it will pave the way for something that we currently struggle with. And that is that we're also very concerned about the health of our planet. And this isn't, again, science fiction, in that many people have thought that the moon is an experimental zone where potentially there is the opportunity to see whether we could inhabit the moon. Now, here's an example. There's a lady who's called Hannah Sargent, and she's actually part of a laboratory in the Open University of Milton Keynes. Now, she is a student, but she's currently working on something which is using a mineral called ilmenite, and that's abundant on the moon. Now, and the benchtop oven that she's using is heated to extract oxygen, which is combined with hydrogen, which you get water. And, of course, the point being here is that once you've got oxygen and water, well, things could blossom. And so it is possible that actually we could be thinking, even in our own lifetime, that we could start to actually inhabit the moon. And beyond that, who knows, it could be Mars. Are we actually now going to be seeing very soon the first man or woman on Mars? And it is possible. So from a commercial perspective, I actually think that this is a good thing. I think it builds actually a good economy, and we see it also in other places. Automotive is an obvious one. Now, we've mentioned this chappie before, but Elon Musk, who invests in this type of outfit, has openly pointed out that if we are to push the boundaries of technology and to enhance our civilization, wherever that may be, then these are the type of ventures that we need to invest in. So from a commercial point of view, I see a lot of benefits there. And it's not just about landing on a moon or even landing on Mars. Actually, it's about enhancing our overall lives, because one of the things that I think that if we don't have these type of ventures, we're not going to make progress. And I think that we are possibly going to need to do it as a species, because I think that we are pulling enormous resources from this planet. Carbon, we know. We are very carbon-led, and that can be changed. Appreciate that there is obviously sustainable energy sources, but maybe what we now need to consider is it possible that maybe the next generation, yes, that's the clergyman Pete generation that's unfolding, folks, maybe that they might actually get in the next generation, their children, their first jobs might be on the moon.
Yes, and it may be that we need to expand, as you're sort of hinting at there, because there isn't enough on Earth. But I just want to stray slightly into science fiction, just in closing, in that it certainly is possible. People say there's an infinite universe, in which case, in an infinite universe, there must logically be other planets with life on them. I'm
Well,
not sure.
almost certainly.
I'm not convinced of that, because by infinite we just mean without limits. So there's more and more of them. Not necessarily infinite. It isn't actually a number. Infinity isn't actually a number. But certainly it's very, very big, the universe. So if there are other civilizations, other places around the universe where we might find people, then surely it would be a good idea for us to get our act together and be able to travel around the universe ourselves to be equal to them. Maybe we'll have to fight against them. Maybe we'll have to send off people to try and sort out difficulties between different warring factions in far-flung parts of the universe. Maybe there'll be an evil empire raising up, or
I can see where you're going. I can see you.
well, I don't want
laser
to.
beams.
I didn't want to cling on to this too much, but I just
The Dark
thought
Star
it
or
might. Yes, yeah, I was mixing a few different
Yes, you were there.
different franchises, but you get where I'm going. You get where I'm going in that I'm sort of laughing at the idea of those sagas like Star Wars and Star Trek, but. If there is true that there's other aliens there, it would be good for us to better develop our technology and go and find them. Why not?
Oh, indeed. Well, listeners, what do you think? Do you think that maybe we're spending a bit too much money on these sort of ventures, and that money could be put into other worthy causes? Or maybe actually you've got a completely different view. Maybe actually you think this is the way it's going to go. Why not log on to Mark and Pete and let us know your thoughts? But the one thing that I can definitely tell is that if we do pursue our space exploration, the intergalactic Mark and Pete show is sure to be broadcast wherever you may.
Yes, don't worry about that, folks. Don't you
Don't worry about that. Well, I really celebrate this 50 years of the first man on the moon, and we look forward to the next step in our journey into space. Join us next time for more colourful conversations with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark.